Hello, I'm Edward Tarte, once a Catholic priest for 5 years in the 1960s, now an atheist, which means I find no credible evidence for the existence of any God. The word gospel is understood by Christians to mean good news. The four Gospels of the biblical New Testament, said to be according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, reportedly give us the good news, the gospel of Jesus and of our salvation. But in this video I ask, is the biblical gospel really good news? To answer that question, first I turn to ex-Christian minister, now atheist author and speaker, Dan Barker. Earlier this year he spoke at the Atheist Convention in Melbourne, Australia. Here is what he said about the, quote, good news, unquote.
But the good news I used to preach as a Christian minister was basically this. Suppose I were to walk out on my front porch and you're walking by and I say, hey, I've got some good news for you. Some great news. Stop. You've been walking by all these days and you've been ignoring me, and I deserve to be acknowledged. I deserve to be noticed. I'm somebody. I'm important. And you just keep walking by. You're not even paying any attention to me. So I've got some good news for you. You don't have to go down in my basement. That's right. This is great news because you've been ignoring me all this time and you've not been giving me the proper respect that I deserve. It made me so angry, and I'm an angry person when I don't get honored and when my goodness is not respected. So I built this torture chamber down in my basement. And there's some icky, smelly vats down there, and there's some sharp knives, and it's kind of dark, and there's the furnace with flames growing, and there's these chains, and it's horrible and it's ugly. But you don't have to go down there. This is great news. You don't have to. I sent my son down there. And it was ugly. It was horrible. It was a passion of the Christ. It was bloody. But that satisfied my anger. And I'm not mad anymore, okay? I got all that taken care of. So it's all over. This is great news. So all you have to do, come on up here to my porch and just come on up here and tell my son thank you for the great thing he did for you. And come up and give us a hug, and we'll welcome you into our house, and we'll live up in the attic forever. And you can tell me how great I am, and you can thank my son for it. Wouldn't that be just wonderful news? Aren't you happy to know that? So what would you do? Would you just keep walking, or would you? Sorry, I got to get to work. That's supposedly the good news.
So, by that analogy, Dan Barker supports his claim that the biblical gospel is not really good news. I now add to that the following. The biblical gospel is not only not good news, it is not news at all. News requires solid evidence. A decent news reporter, a decent news organization, gets solid, credible evidence before it reports anything as news. But the biblical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are not like that. They were written decades after the reported death of Jesus. We do not have any original manuscripts of them. All we have is translations of copies of translations of copies of translations, etc., with innumerable discrepancies and contradictions. The Bible is not historically reliable. We have no reliable knowledge of what Jesus said and did, nor of the purposes of his actions, whatever they were. Many biblical scholars say that we do not even have enough evidence to say with confidence that Jesus ever existed. Neither the Gospels nor any other part of the Bible, nor any other source offers me credible evidence that any God exists. If there is a God, or if there are gods, I sincerely invite and request that it or they come to me, come to all of us, and make its presence or their presence unmistakably clear. Then I will not become a believer. I will never become a believer. I will become a knower. But unless and until such evidence emerges, it makes no more sense for me to base my life on the biblical God or the biblical Jesus than to believe in other gods, such as Thor, Zeus, Poseidon, Ra, Baal, etc. And I say to you believers, you are with me in not believing in these other gods. Both you and I are atheists with respect to them. It would make a lot of sense for you to consider becoming an atheist with respect to your God also. So I say, the gospel is not good news. Indeed, it is not news at all. To all of you, thank you for watching this video.